So let's talk about how
Our
we bring
article?
OpenAI into Salesforce. Let's do that. Yeah.
It's almost like we designed this to segue, which
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
those
Right.
of you following along at home, we did not. We're winging this. We're just that good.
So we ended up writing an article a couple of weeks ago to
Yes.
talk about service outage management. In particular, this was with a video game company because both Justin and I
Well,
love
we
to play
had
video
two
games.
flavors of this article. If
We
you
do
remember.
have two
We had a-
flavors.
We had
Yeah.
a video game version and a retail version, and I can't remember which one Peyton slated to actually share for the stream. I'm hoping it's the video game one because that's the one I want to talk about.
We'll share both, right? But we can
Okay,
talk about the video game one too. Yeah, because there's a lot of we've had a customer that was in that industry as well, and so we figured that this is like a pretty cool use case for this. But this honestly works throughout multiple industries, including energy, manufacturing, retail. So don't get discouraged if you look at this like this doesn't particularly affect me. I don't have a video game studio, but
Well, so we can put a framework around this for everybody listening right now. At the end of the day, this whole thing that we're about to talk about is if you deliver a to consumer service, so you have wide direct personal reach with a large number of individuals, and there's a chance that some part of your service goes down. So like you could be a utility company, anything where all of a sudden people are going to start blowing you up on social media and they're going to submit error reports across a wide variety of channels like, hey, had this problem, this is what's going on. I like the video game use case because I am a nerd and I play video games in my free time, but this works for like e-commerce, like retail consumer goods businesses. Like if your storefront goes down and people are reporting these issues, things like that, it's very widely applicable. Really, the industry is just a flavor of the day, I think, for fun.
Yeah. So, Justin, why don't you give us the 5-sentence review? Like, Peyton will have this linked in a pinned comment or chat for you guys to take a look. If you guys haven't seen this one already, it's also available on our website, I think Quiller and a couple other locations. But we'll make sure you have a link here so you guys can take a look. But Justin, 5-6 sentences.
Absolutely.
What is this about?
So this is about actually navigating an instance of a service outage using two AIs, Einstein and OpenAI. Now, if I'm going to have my way with this, I'm going to run with the video game story just so we can build some quick concrete context.
Have your way.
So the setting for what we discuss in this article, if you will, is a video game company. I think for fun, I said the video game services and their back-end IT that supported that was hosted on Heroku. You have your chat GPT service off to the side, and then you have your traditional Salesforce, Force.com infrastructure. So Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, you have Einstein in there as part of that mix. And so this just kind of gives you a bit of an idea of, okay, actual video game is hosted on Heroku. Back office company stuff is hosted on Salesforce, Force.com platform. Back-end IT for video game also hosted on Heroku. And that's kind of our layout, if you will, at a high level. And from there, we just say a service outage happens. Like, what could that look like? How would we handle that? And so for any of you that have either worked at a company that's experienced this kind of thing, or maybe you've been a consumer and you've participated in this phenomenon, right? But in the case of a video game, you're trying to log in and you're getting error messages, or maybe you're in the video game and stuff stops working. Where do you go? You go to the forums or you go to Twitter. What do? You post about your error because you're an impatient video gamer. You're finally done with work for the day and you want to go fight the bad guys or whatever. That ends up leading to, in the case of a service outage, just a tidal wave of inbound error reports across your own forums, across Twitter/X, across maybe even Facebook or other places that you have a presence. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. So I imagine all of you would have some kind of experience with this phenomenon. And as somebody like in IT who would be responsible for resolving a service outage, that kind of error reporting is a double-edged sword. One, you get a lot of potentially detail-rich information that helps you troubleshoot the problem and figure it out. but you are getting it in the most cumbersome volume possible. And not only that, but these people aren't just reporting the error to you to be like, oh, hey, this is, there's a problem. Just wanted to let you know, like, they still want to play your game. They are waiting, maybe by their computer. Like, when are they going to have this fixed? So there's pressure to deal with it and get back to everybody that reported to you. And so this article is kind of just envisioning how can you address that challenge and, get the value of that error reporting while leveling up your handling of just that cumbersome volume of data coming in. So I'll say that's the end of my summary, but I feel like I started to get into the actual meat there as well.
Right. So the big thing here that we talked about in the article that I thought was super interesting is taking all that data that's coming in with disparate sources and both useful and potentially not useful.
I mean, that's going to happen, right?
And the TLDR of it is that you're able to eliminate a lot of that first order filtering,
yes,
and first order case support, and not just deflect it, but just completely sidestep and eliminate it by using LLMs, because they're able to take all these disparate reports, because some people are just going to say, hey, it's broken, I can't log in, and that's it. And they're just like, no error code, nothing. Some people are going to be sending error code. Some people are going to be Googling error code. Some people are going to be providing, their own IP address, date of birth, their type of specs of their PC, everything that's going, like everything they can.
I never provide personal information in an error report, but I will tell you this. If you give me an error code, the very first thing I do is I go Google that error code, and I'm like, what the heck does this mean? And is there any way I can fix it from my end?
Right. But sometimes when you have these, like a large system outage, whether, potentially it's like a, DDoS attack or, some, I think it was a couple of, even Salesforce dealt with some of this stuff too, when they had that big DNS outage, like across like half the country.
Oh yeah.
Like a couple of years ago that happened, and like it wasn't just Salesforce and Heroku and a couple of, but there's a whole bunch of websites.
Well, it was a underlying provider, right? That just a bunch of major providers, and it didn't last super long.
It didn't last super long, but like you get all this stuff coming in, and you get this like unable to log in or unable to connect or all this other stuff. You get these error codes, but they're not necessarily the right ones. And the cool thing that LLM will allow you to do in this situation is to be able to collate all that data and then start routing it based on like the most valid pieces of information that you are getting consistently, and start creating that second tier and third tier order support tickets, so that you could solve the issue even quicker, instead of having like someone just filtering through all the channels of chaos, most of which is probably garbage information. And so that, like, I thought that this was like a really cool use case for OpenAI. And then you even brought it a little step further when you talked about how to tie in Einstein as well, which ties into the article we just talked about. But what are some things then, we were writing this and you guys could read the whole thing in your own time, but what are some things then that you wanted to talk about that you didn't get a chance to while writing this one up?
Well, so for me, I said a lot of cool things. So if it's all right, I'd like to highlight very quickly the things I think were coolest in that article, like the bullet points, and then maybe dive in a little deeper on them. So first off, as you're probably already assuming, the idea is that these error reports filter into OpenAI, ChatGPT. You have your LLM-based AI. It can read all of these different error reports, which have no standard format because gamers don't bother with that. Like your small character count tweet is just going to throw out whatever information they think is relevant very quickly, very succinctly, and dump it to you. So ChatGPT's goal of like basically being able to infer human meaning from text communication, I think is very powerful here, to basically take this tidal wave of messages and, as you said, first order filter it down to, okay, these hundreds or thousands of reports all correspond to a singular issue. And it can take those reports and aggregate them, basically take each helpful, unique piece of information, bring it down together before feeding that into Salesforce in like a case in Service Cloud as like a single case that's all of these had the same error code. Some of these had additional pieces of information. I've tied it all together in one spot to report to the back office to start actioning and dealing with. Now, if you're like me, and this is something I didn't call out in there, what gets really cool, right, is again, it's an LLM based AI. So as it's receiving these error reports, it can intelligently send brief acceptance or acknowledgement responses to every error report to be like, hey, thank you for submitting this. You're not the only one. Like, we've seen a lot of people that have this issue, and how much detail you want it to share, you can configure, but you do that first line of defense of thank you for your information. We are aware of this issue. You are not the only one. We are working on it. And that's important because that buys you patience from your audience while you actually figure out the root cause and get into it. And that's not something I really got to underline in the article, but I think there's huge value in doing that. But two, with a little bit of Salesforce customization, and I don't want to give away the golden goose here, but you can set it up that, you know, you might be creating a singular case for all of these related error reports that have all these things, but you can track and tack on these reports that have related to the case to basically say, you know, these are all the people that reported on this case and gave me the information. And as this case gets updated, I'm going to pass back information to those people about this issue. And again, that's something that AI is very powerful for. And I didn't get into this into the article, but I thought it was rather brilliant, this idea that your service team, as they're actioning the case, posting updates to it, resolutions, that then, you know, Einstein can do its thing inside of Salesforce in terms of classifying the case to route it to the right teams once it comes in, provide insights, help troubleshoot from a back office side. But then as the human element is coming in and updating and actually closing out resolutions and providing details for what the fix is, that could then be surfaced back to like ChatGPT to say, hey, we have an update on this. Here's what we know so far. ChatGPT can read that, you know, translate that into plain English for your non-savvy audience, you know, your gamers out there that are just wanting it to work, and say, hey, we've made progress. Here's what's going on. Here's what it is. And you have to think, right? These are hundreds, thousands of people receiving messages that give them that like sort of white glove feeling that their issues being taken seriously, they're being kept in the loop, and you're not paying human hands.
Well, yeah, and
shovel
and
that.
even beyond that too, just to tie into what we talked about briefly last week, was again with some Salesforce customization, tying in these different cases, especially all the cases, and having it do some analysis there, and not just, you know, like, because again, like, some of the stuff will be in and it'll be tagged, metadata tagged, and you'll hopefully have some knowledge articles set up within your Salesforce. But even beyond that, like, if you've got, we just talked about big data, all these other data lakes and systems and whatnot, if you've got other case data or Jira tickets or whatever you're using to like diagnose or solve.
We haven't gotten to the next bullet point yet. Just wait.
Right. But we're running out of time. But the cool thing is it'll be an AI assistant for your case service representative too. Like, it can help give them ideas on how to troubleshoot this. And I think that's again, it's so multi-pronged at this point, like, because it's such a powerful, effectively like search engine tool, plain language search engine, that it just, like, not only does it allow you to consolidate cases, do case deflection, do case remediation, but also assist the service rep that's actually tasked with solving whatever outage you have. And it's just really cool.
It is. So. Now, and I know we got to be mindful of the time, so I promise I will keep a cap on this, but I do want to touch on it because I saved the best for last, and I actually think this is the coolest. So what? So as you said, you talked about, you know, basically this acting as like an AI assistant for your customer service rep. This can become an AI assistant for your IT and engineering teams, because at the end of the day, if there's a service outage, something is going wrong somewhere in your IT. And you've got all kinds of services dumping similarly large volume logs. Now, think of this concept of having your like Chat GPT and you're having log data fed through this thing, and you train it up to like understand what is nominal operation and what is error.
Okay.
And so now these error reports are coming in, and you have some simple automation that might go in and say, oh, hey, they gave me the error code and the timestamp. So I'm going to pull the logs for our services around this timestamp. And, maybe it's like a 5-minute window or something, but you're just like, boom, I'm going to grab this chunk, and whatever went wrong that caused this error, I should hopefully be able to find it in the logs in this time window.
No, that's super cool, because then what you're talking about is you can just have it immediately highlighted up, bring up the article with what type of error it is, and then help the developer out right there. That is super cool.
So, hey, we noticed your service is down. Like, you're getting a warning here, but this is telling me that this other service is offline, which would lead to this issue. So AI.
Well, you can even go further than that. You could say it's like, hey, in this particular exception, because you guys are using, let's say C++ or C#, whatever. It's like, here's a development link. These are all the articles related to this type of error. And so your developer can literally go in there and, like, instead of diving through the logs for like 30 minutes to find the relevant one. That is, I didn't even think about that. That's super cool.
I think I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this in the article, but it was very superficial, I think, because now I'm going to really blow your mind. If you know what your error is, like if you have the error code, you have the actual error report, if you give a code class and a stack trace in that code class for an error, like ChatGPT actually has the functionality to recommend fixes, to be like, okay, so this stack trace says it's this line, it's this kind of error, it's this thing right here. This is your problem. These are like the 5 most common fixes for it.
That's what I was just saying.
So like, it's not just like feeding your logs through and then applying general language or programming stuff. You can feed your code base through the AI, and it can apply.
Well, it would know it. It would say it's like, it came from this file at this location and this line, so I know it's this class. So I'm going to go pull it up, and I'm going to recommend a change to try to fix it. And I've actually had some guys like do some like Lua code, like just all through GPT. Again, not the best quality, but at least it's like, here's the logical error, here's a problem. Like, I might have written it like garbage, but it's like, it's already found it for you. So now your engineer is not spending time looking for the freaking thing, or doing crazy stack traces and debugs to try to make it happen. Like, it's really cool. I didn't think of that kind of use case, because again, it just speeds up that remediation. And even if it's not, at every step.
I get excited about this because it is at every step of the process. And when you start to think about it, right? Because again, to tie in the Einstein element, right? So when you look at Einstein AI and how it typically applies to cases, it goes into like case classification and routing and things like that. And being able to infer that just from the raw contents of the case. So you're not worried about outright automating or building all that in. Like Einstein's like, oh, I recognize this kind of issue. It's this kind of thing. It needs to go to engineering to be solved. And so what ends up happening, like if you take a step back, look at it from like the 10,000 foot view, is we're really talking about a conversation between two AIs, ChatGPT and Einstein. ChatGPT is interfacing with these humans through its comprehensive LLM-based AI. It's getting this data, consolidating, aggregating, creating a case, which then Einstein's like, thank you. This is this kind of issue, routes it to the right places. Then let's say it is a code issue that's driving the service outage. So that's going up to engineering. As part of that, they're going to have business automation to grab those logging snippets, tie all this stuff together, attach it to the case, feed that through ChatGPT again to be like, give me the coding analysis on this. It's going to give recommendations for resolutions right away. Once it does, the engineer is going to go in, action that item, and then mark it resolved, which will then go back to Einstein to then do the resolution dispatching, which will then hand it back off to ChatGPT. So it's not perfect. There's a human element in here, but this is an example of getting to a point where a complex, large data volume problem is being handled as a conversation between two AIs almost. And I think that's really compelling.
Well, with a couple people playing referee in the middle, I think, and that's
it should be, because we don't want Skynet.
But I think that's this is the last thing we'll say on this, and we'll go on to our next segment and then start wrapping up. But I think that's the ideal, is being able to, like, all of the stuff, like tracking through, like looking through stack traces to find specific error codes and then figuring out where this is effed up is the most annoying thing for a developer on the planet, like honestly. And like being able to do that and then communicate seamlessly back to your customers, like, hey, we found the issue, here's what's going on, like, and setting that up, and then the communication between two automation engines effectively is really cool. And so guys, if you hadn't had a chance, Peyton's going to link this article in the chat as a pinned comment on this video, so take a look at the article. Free for anyone.